Alright, here's the deal. I knew I messed up. I'm not going to sit here and pretend forgetting our anniversary was a small thing. It wasn't. But the way it spiraled out of control, the way my wife turned one mistake into a demand for a grand public apology, is the part I never saw coming. Let me back up. We've been married for a few years, and like most couples, we've had our ups and downs. I work long hours. She juggles her own responsibilities, and sometimes we pass each other like ships in the night. Still, I've always thought we had a strong foundation. We laughed together. We fought fairly. We celebrated the milestones when we could. But then came the anniversary I forgot. Not because I didn't care, not because it didn't matter, but because life had swallowed me whole that week. Deadlines at work, family obligations, exhaustion. The date slipped by without me realizing until it was too late. When she brought it up, I immediately felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. The hurt in her eyes was sharp, like I had erased the years we'd spent together with one careless oversight. I apologized right there, sincere and panicked, but it wasn't enough. Because in her mind, this wasn't just about forgetting a date. It was about respect, about love, about proof that I valued her and our marriage. And so, she demanded something more. A full apology, not just to her in private, but in front of family and friends. That's when things got messy. This is the story of how a forgotten anniversary turned into a battle over pride, love, and the very meaning of an apology. The day itself had started like any other. I woke up, rushed through my morning routine, grabbed a cup of coffee that was far too bitter, and bolted out the door with my laptop bag slung over my shoulder. Work had been relentless all week, back-to-back meetings, emails piling up faster than I could answer them, and a deadline breathing down my neck. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew there was a date circled on the calendar. I had glanced at it earlier in the month, thinking, don't forget. But in the blur of exhaustion and stress, the significance of the day slipped past me like water through my hands. By the time I got home, I was drained. My only thought was collapsing on the couch. My wife was waiting for me in the kitchen, dressed nicely, makeup done, candles flickering on the dining table. The smell of her cooking filled the air, a meal she had clearly put hours into preparing. And that's when it hit me. Her eyes lit up when I walked in, expecting me to say something, anything. Instead, I just stood there like an idiot, confused by the setup. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed in real time as she realized the truth. "You forgot," she said quietly. Not a question, not an accusation, just a flat statement of fact. My heart plummeted. I tried to recover, stammering out something about being busy, about how the week had been chaos. But excuses sounded hollow, even to my own ears. She had spent the day preparing to celebrate us, and I had walked in like it was any other Tuesday. The rest of the evening was painfully quiet. We ate in near silence, her forcing a smile now and then, me scrambling for words that never seemed good enough. I apologized, sincerely, repeatedly, but it felt like throwing sand on a fire. The damage was already done. Later, when the plates were cleared and the candles had burned low, she finally turned to me. Her voice wasn't angry, it was worse. It was calm, cold. "You need to understand what this means to me," she said. "This isn't just a date on a calendar. This is our marriage. And if you can forget that, then maybe you need to show me, and everyone else, that you're truly sorry." That was the moment the anniversary stopped being about the date itself, and became something much bigger. The morning after was worse than the night itself. I woke up with that heavy, sinking feeling in my chest. The kind you get when you know you've screwed up and the problem isn't going away just because you slept. My wife was already awake, moving quietly around the house, but there was a chill in the air that had nothing to do with the weather. I tried to make conversation over breakfast. "Do you want me to take you out tonight? we can still celebrate. She didn't even look up from her coffee. It's not the same. The words landed like a stone. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't slamming doors, but the disappointment hung between us like a fog. That hurt more than anger ever could. Throughout the day, I kept sending little messages, small apologies, ideas for how we could make up for the missed anniversary. Flowers, dinner reservations, a weekend getaway. Each suggestion was met with the same cool responses. Too late. That's not the point. You don't get it. By evening, I felt like I was drowning. Finally, she sat me down in the living room. Her expression hard, but her voice steady. You don't just get to fix this with flowers. You forgot something that matters to me, to us. And you didn't just hurt my feelings. You made me feel like this marriage isn't important to you. So no, a dinner won't cut it. I need more than that. I need you to show me you actually care. I nodded quickly, desperate to make things right. Tell me what to do. I'll do it. Endem. Panu. Kashem. Nishani. Afo. That's when she said it. I want you to apologize properly. Not just to me, but to everyone. To our family, to our friends. You embarrassed me by forgetting, and I want people to see that you regret it. Her demand hit me like ice water. An apology was one thing. I had already given her that, more times than I could count. But a public apology? To everyone? The thought of it made my stomach twist. It wasn't just about saying sorry anymore. It was about humiliation, about being put on display. But when I looked into her eyes, I could see she wasn't bluffing. This was her line in the sand. Either I agreed, or the damage would only get worse. When she first said it, a public apology, I thought maybe I had misheard. I stared at her, waiting for a hint of sarcasm, some sign that she was exaggerating out of anger. But her expression was steady, almost businesslike, as if she had already rehearsed this in her head. I don't just want you to say sorry to me, she repeated. I want you to tell our families, our friends. I want them to hear it from you. My throat went dry. You want me to announce it? Like, stand up in front of everyone and admit I forgot? Yes, she said simply. Because this wasn't just about me. People knew it was our anniversary. People asked me what you had planned. Do you know how embarrassing it was to tell them you didn't do anything? That you forgot completely? Do you know how small that made me feel? Her voice cracked on that last word, and for the first time I saw the depth of the hurt, not just anger, but humiliation. And in her mind, the only way to undo that was to flip the script. Make me the one humiliated, make me carry the shame out loud so she didn't have to carry it alone. I tried to reason with her. But airing this to everyone will only make things worse. It's private, between us. I can make it up to you, I promise. She cut me off. No, you don't get to decide how to fix this. You decided to forget. You decided to make me feel invisible. Now it's my turn to decide how you make it right. The words hit hard, because there was truth in them. I had messed up. I had hurt her. But part of me bristled at the thought that love could be repaired through spectacle, that respect could be measured in how many witnesses heard me say, I was sorry. For days after, the demand hung over every conversation. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She just repeated it calmly, firmly, as if it were the only logical solution. You want to fix this? Then tell everyone. Show them you regret it. And with each repetition, I felt the walls closing in. Because as much as I hated the idea, I also knew what refusing might cost me. The tension in the house grew heavier with each passing day. It wasn't loud fights or slammed doors. It was worse than that. It was silence, cold and sharp, punctuated only by clipped words and lingering glares. Every time I tried to bring up another solution, flowers, dinner, even a surprise weekend trip, she shook her head. You still don't get it, she'd say. This isn't about gifts. It's about Acknowledgement. Her demand echoed in my mind everywhere I went. At work, I stared blankly at my computer screen, hearing her voice. Tell everyone. Show them you regret it. At night, I lay awake in bed beside her, the distance between us feeling wider than any physical space. The worst part was how the tension bled into daily routines. Meals became quiet rituals, where the scrape of utensils on plates was louder than conversation. The couch, once our place to laugh over silly shows, became two separate islands. We sat together, but not with each other. Friends noticed too. When they invited us out, she declined, saying we were working through something. The words hung in the air like a warning. The story was already leaking out, even without my public confession. Every small mistake I made became fuel for the fire. If I forgot to take the trash out, she'd sigh, "Figures, you forget everything that matters." If I was 5 minutes late getting home, she'd mutter, not surprised, "You don't prioritize us." It wasn't just about the anniversary anymore. It was about trust, respect, proof. And in her mind, until I stood up and apologized publicly, none of those could be restored. I felt trapped between two impossible choices: swallow my pride and agree to her demand, or refuse and risk widening the rift until it became unfixable. And with each day of silence, each cold look, I could feel the choice pressing closer. The breaking point came at a family dinner I hadn't even wanted to attend. Her parents had invited us over, along with her siblings and a few close relatives. Normally these dinners were noisy but warm. Good food, lots of laughter, the usual small talk. But this time, I felt the tension buzzing in the air before we even walked through the door. She was unusually quiet in the car, her arms folded across her chest, her eyes fixed on the window. I thought maybe the evening would distract her, that we'd get through it without incident. I was wrong. Halfway through the meal, when the conversation drifted to anniversaries and weddings, because of course it did, her mother smiled at us and asked, "So, how did you two celebrate this year?" I froze. The fork in my hand felt suddenly too heavy. I opened my mouth to answer, to make up something vague about being busy but planning something later, but I never got the chance. My wife set her glass down with a deliberate clink and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "We didn't celebrate. He forgot." The room went silent. Her brother raised his eyebrows. Her mother's smile faltered, and all I could do was sit there, heat rising to my face, while every pair of eyes turned toward me. "Really?" her father asked, his tone sharp. I stammered, trying to apologize, trying to explain. But my wife wasn't finished. She leaned back in her chair, her voice calm but cutting. "I told him he owes me a real apology. Not just to me, but to everyone. Because forgetting something like that disrespects the marriage, and it disrespects all of you who care about us." It was the exact moment I had dreaded. The demand made public, my humiliation laid bare in front of her family. And in that moment, I realized two things. First, that she had no intention of letting this go quietly. And second, that no matter how much I hated it, I was going to have to decide whether to bow to her demand or stand my ground in front of the people whose approval she valued most. The drive home after that dinner was suffocating. The silence between us was thick, broken only by the hum of the tires on the road. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I needed to, my jaw clenched, my mind racing with everything I wished I'd said at the table, but hadn't. As soon as we walked through the door, she spoke, her voice sharp and steady. "No, do you see why I wanted you to apologize publicly? You embarrassed me again tonight. Do you even care how small you make me look in front of my family?" Madam? Her words hit hard, but anger surged up to meet them. "I apologize to you. I've said it 100 times. What do you want me to do? Hold a press conference?" She folded her arms. "I want you to prove that you understand what you did, that you're not just sorry because you got caught forgetting, but because you hurt me. And yes, if that means swallowing your pride and apologizing in front of the people who matter to me, then that's what you should do." I paced the living room, frustration burning through me. "Do you hear yourself? You don't want an apology. You want a performance. You want me humiliated so you can feel better." Her face tightened. "No, Dost. I want accountability. You don't get to minimize this. You forgot something sacred, and the only way to make it right is to show everyone you take it seriously." Nain. The fight stretched late into the night, circling the same points over and over. Her demand for a public apology, my resistance, the gaping wound of the forgotten anniversary. By the time we collapsed into bed, backs turned to each other, nothing had been resolved. But one thing had become painfully clear: this wasn't just about a date anymore. It was about pride, power, and the way both of us saw what it meant to be respected in a marriage. And neither of us was willing to back down. The days that followed felt like a standoff in slow motion. We went through the motions of daily life, work, meals, errands, but beneath the surface, the same argument simmered, unspoken, but ever present. She waited for me to cave, watching me with a quiet intensity, as though expecting me to finally say, "Fine, I'll do it." I waited for her to soften, to admit that maybe her demand was too much. Neither of us moved. At work, I found myself staring at my phone during breaks, dreading the next message. Every vibration in my pocket made my stomach twist. Would it be another reminder? Another ultimatum? Some days it was silence, and that was almost worse. At home, the tension was everywhere. Cooking dinner together became an exercise in restraint, each of us clattering pots and pans louder than necessary. Watching TV side by side was unbearable. We laughed at different times, sighed at different moments, existing in the same room, but on opposite sides of an invisible wall. When friends invited us out, she always declined. "Not until you do the right thing," she said flatly. It wasn't just a request anymore. It was a condition for normalcy. Our life together had been put on hold until I agreed to her terms. I started to question everything. Was this about the anniversary anymore? Or was it about control, about who got to set the rules in our marriage? Part of me felt guilty. Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe she truly needed that gesture to feel secure again. But another part of me bristled. If I gave in now, what would stop her from demanding public penance every time I made a mistake? Nights were the hardest. We lay in bed back to back, the silence screaming louder than any argument. I could feel the distance growing, an ocean spreading between us inch by inch, wave by wave. The standoff couldn't last forever. Sooner or later, something or someone would break. It finally broke one Saturday morning. We had been circling the same silence for days when she sat down across from me at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee in her hands, her expression set. "We can't keep living like this," she said, her voice calm but edged with finality. "Either you do this, or I don't know how we move forward." The words landed like a verdict. She wasn't raising her voice anymore. She didn't need to. The weight of her ultimatum pressed harder than any shouting could. I put my mug down, my hands trembling. "So that's it. One mistake, and you're ready to throw everything away unless I embarrass myself in front of everyone?" Her jaw tightened. "It's not about embarrassing you. It's about showing me, and them, that you value this marriage, that you value me." I leaned forward, my frustration spilling over. "I said I'm sorry. I've tried to make it up to you. But if the only way to prove my love is to perform it like some public spectacle, then maybe we have a bigger problem than a forgotten date." Her eyes flashed, but instead of arguing, she went quiet. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally she whispered, "Maybe we do." The words chilled me. For the first time, I felt the ground truly give way beneath us. This wasn't about flowers or dinners or even the anniversary anymore. This was about pride, about principles, about what it meant to love and be loved in return. And in that moment, I realized something. No matter what choice I made, whether I bowed my head in public apology or held my ground, I would be changing the course of our marriage forever. Looking back now, I can see how a single forgotten date became something much larger than it should have been. Forgetting our anniversary was my mistake. No question about it. I should have done better, should have been more mindful, should have shown her that our marriage mattered enough to carve out space even in the busiest week. But what happened afterward? The demands, the silence, the standoff, taught me more about our relationship than I was ready to face. I learned that apologies aren't just about the words you say. To her, they were about validation, about proof, about repairing an injury she felt deeply. To me, they were about sincerity, about fixing things between the two of us, not putting it on display for the world. Neither of us was completely wrong, but we weren't speaking the same language of love. I also learned that resentment grows in silence. Each day we avoided the real conversation. The distance widened until it felt like we were living parallel lives under the same roof. By the time we sat down for that breaking conversation, it wasn't about the anniversary anymore. It was about what kind of marriage we actually wanted. The truth is, there isn't a clean ending here. I didn't march into a family gathering and issue a dramatic apology, nor did I storm out and end the marriage. What I did do was draw a line. I told her I'd apologize to her as many times as she needed, but I wouldn't turn my mistake into a public show. If that wasn't enough, then maybe we weren't the partners we thought we were. It wasn't easy. It still isn't. Some wounds don't heal overnight, and some expectations don't just disappear because you resist them. But standing my ground taught me something important. That love without respect isn't sustainable, and respect without boundaries isn't real. So yes, I forgot our anniversary. But what I won't forget again is this. If we want a marriage that lasts, both of us need to meet in the middle, not demand the other bend until they break.